So when we were there this for Memorial Weekend, my dad was trying frantically to. He was really concerned about this guy that he served with in Germany. He was just a sergeant. He was just a little bit older than him, but somebody who we really respected. And his name is the same name as that Frank Riddler. He was also from St. Paul, Minnesota, and my dad was from Minneapolis, and so in the same company, and just had a friendship. And they were under attack one day, and they were running back to jump into their foxholes, and my dad didn't quite make it into the foxhole all the way. And this Frank Riddler reached up and pulled my dad by the belt into the foxhole. And at that exact moment is when a bomb went off, and if my dad wouldn't have been pulled to safety, that right then he would have taken a shell right to his midsection and died. So my dad was really concerned about him, wondering what happened to him after the war. They always promised that they would meet up, but they never did. So Frank Riddler saved my dad's life twice. So once when he received the Bronze Star when they captured those Germans in Bonn, Germany, and then also in this foxhole incident. The other thing that my dad was talking about is another story that he had. I can't remember what the story is. Can you stop that? So he told us another story about, it was right after the war ended, and he was had procured a handgun from one of the Germans, and that was highly illegal. But he had taken possession of this pistol, and then he had that in his jacket pocket, and he was hitchhiking to Munich, Germany. And he was picked up by these two guys, and things were going along really well. And all of a sudden, they took him off into a back road, and they dumped him out on the ground. And he was able to pull that gun out and threaten to kill them, and that was the only thing that saved his life. So they couldn't tell on my dad because my dad had the gun, and they couldn't tell on my dad because he had the gun, that they had kidnapped him and they were going to kill him. So being able to have procured this gun was another factor that saved his life during the war. I don't know. So when we were there, I had your grandpa bring out all of his war medals and kind of explain to me what he had here. So in this picture, you'll see that he has a Purple Heart. And that was because in one of those battles that he was in, he got some shrapnel in his knee. And the interesting part to me is that he had shrapnel in his knee and was in the hospital for several days because of that. And to this day, at 87 years old, he's never had any other knee surgeries. So then off to the side of that, you see there's those two little pins that say number 1. He was in the division called the Big Red 1. And then the checkerboard pin next to it is the 16th Infantry Regiment that he was in. Now you could look up on, probably Google Big Red 1 and find out that Big Red 1 was in D-Day plus 6. So that means that he was in the 6th day after the landing there. So one of the things that I discovered when I was in Rapid City this time was the fact that your grandpa received the Bronze Star for combat. So he was telling me a little bit about how he got that. And Stephen, if I forget anything, will you please add to it? So after the war was over, is that true? Or towards the end of the war, they had captured the city of Bonn, Germany. And he and his buddy, his sergeant, Frank Riddler, had been separated from the rest of his division, and they were going through Bonn, and they were on this one street, and they had managed to capture 14 prisoners, the two of them. And they were walking down this street. Now his buddy Frank Riddler knew how to speak German. And when they were walking down the street with all of these German prisoners, a commander came up in his Jeep. A German commander came up in his Jeep. And he told these Germans in German that, what are they so weak that that 2 men are have captured 14 of you. And this Frank Riddler, understanding German and being able to speak German, pulled his gun out of his holster and put it to the commander's forehead and told him in perfect German that that's right, and if he had any complaints that he would shoot him. Is that how you remember the story? Yeah. Okay. So my dad and Frank Riddler were able to capture the German commander as well as the 14 other prisoners. And because of that, he was able to earn the Bronze Star. So the Bronze Star that you see there, the big one, that's that's a medal that he wouldn't have worn except maybe on his dress uniform. But the small pin at the top, we would have been able to wear on his. So this pin is what my dad wore when he was an aviation cadet in California before he was activated and sent over to England to because of his infantry experience. So this is the pin that your grandpa was the most proud of. It's the combat infantry pin. That meant that he was under fire for 30 days of combat, at least 30 days of combat. So after 30 days of being shot at, you get a pin and you got $10 more a month. So this means that he had been in hell for at least 30 days in combat in World War II in Germany. So here's your grandpa's dog tags, and again another picture of the combat infantry pin, just to recognize. And that's one of the things too about the combat infantry pin is he got to wear that on his uniform all the time. So it's not just a temporary on his dress. He got to wear that on all of his normal uniforms. This is the Good Conduct Award that my dad received. Not surprising, he's always been a good guy. So this pin here is the European theater pin. And everybody who was in Europe during World War II was able to get one of these pins just for being over there. But on top of that is 3 little stars. Now those stars are battle stars. So he was in 3 of the 5 large battles that went on in Germany. Now I do wish that AJ, you were the one taking this interview, because you would have recognized these cities and could have spelled them. But I didn't. But I do know that he served under Patton, and he was in the Battle of the Bulge. And I'm not sure if that's one of those stars or is for the Battle of the Bulge, because he just said 3 German-sounding names. So after this, I'm just going to show you some more of the pins and medals that your grandpa had. I'm just so proud of him for serving the country and being our American hero, and for surviving what he had to go through in Germany. So this is the Victory Medal for winning World War II. Yep.
Hang on.
Okay, now go.
I'm Bill Lofgren. I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota on May 13th, 1925. I'm sitting here today in Rapid City, South Dakota. It looks like I'm being interviewed by a bunch of my questionable friends.
No, you're related to us.
And they're all related, so we'll hope everything goes for the best.
No, and my questions, Bill, are, just like growing up as a kid, I know that, you and your dad, the Lofgren's son, that became a company that when you were just kids, you and John.
Yeah.
and you guys formed the family company.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
And then you carried that on until you retired.
Yeah,
that,
right,
You know,
yeah.
so. But I always wondered about how that worked out, how old you were, and
Oh,
you know,
well,
all that kind of stuff, and your jobs, and you know,
yeah.
it's kind of.
This was after World War II, and Jane and I were married, and we had been living with my folks sometimes and sometimes without them. And my dad had bought a farm near Excelsior, and we remodeled the farmhouse, and we moved in, and we moved in together.
Mm-hmm.
Then Jane and I moved away, and but eventually my dad, my brother and I got the idea of planting this property and developing it. And we did what's much easier to plat in those days. You didn't have to get 7 lawyers and spend
Right.
$40,000 in documents. So we platted the property and put in some streets, and we built the houses and developed it, and we called ourselves William Lofgren and Sons. And when my dad retired, we kept that name even after his death until we closed our corporation in 20 years ago.
20 years ago,
Yeah.
so we're actually looking at like
1992.
1992, somewhere early in there. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
92,
so,
93,
early 90s. Yep.
So,
Huh.
and that time we dissolved the corporation and it ceased to be.
So now, what did Grandpa Lofgren do then before you guys came back? Was he actually a carpenter? Did he do that?
My dad, during the Depression, worked at a McCoy radiator company,
Oh,
and for $12 a week, and he was lucky to have a job that paid that much money.
wow.
And then when I was 5 years old, I rode in the back of a Model T Ford to Miami, Florida. We spent the winter down there, and he was looking for work, and we came back, and we lived in Minneapolis, and then my brothers were born, and my dad got a job with Minneapolis Honeywell, and he worked there all his working years through the end of the war. During the war years, he was involved with war manufacturing, Norden bomb sights, and gun sights for mortars,
Oh, wow.
producing
Okay.
those.
Wow.
And so after the war was over, then he sold his property in Excelsior and bought the land in Excelsior, which eventually led to our being in business together.
Oh.
Did he really do the
Let's-
thermostats?
Let's stop for just a minute and see how we sound here. Then we can start again.
So, Dad,
Yeah,
when you went into the service,
yeah.
it was voluntary, right?
No,
Was it
I
direct-
voluntary inducted. If I'd have waited a month, I'd have been drafted, so.
Okay, so, what were you like excited or scared, or what was your biggest feeling that you had when you went in the military, in the army?
I was perfectly at ease because I had taken a test in high school, and I was going to go to the College of the Puget Sound in Tacoma, Washington, after I had an infantry basic, because at that time they weren't sure that we were going to win World War II, and if we did, they were wondering what they were going to do for college graduates. And so we took a test in high school, and I was going to go to the College of the Puget Sound after basic training. Well, during basic training, that 13-week period, things took a turn for the better in the war fronts, Africa and Japan and so forth. And so they could see that the war was going to end sooner than they thought it would. And so they wouldn't need these college engineers. So they called up all the AFCP people and put them that had infantry basic, and put them in the infantry and sent them to England and got them ready for D-Day. So,
And you were supposed to be in the Air Corps.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I transferred to the Air Corps when I got out of ASTP, And I was in actually I was in an Air Corps cadet program when they called us back from because of the infantry basic.
So you were thinking that you were going into a safe
I,
type of an environment?
yeah.
And then you got the news you were going to England.
Yeah.
So, and you had said that one of the things that happened at the same time, you went into the military and then Uncle Tom went to the institution?
Yeah.
Faribault
And
State Hospital.
Faribault State Hospital?
Yeah.
So,
He was retarded.
was your mom, so how did Grandpa and Grandma take all that?
Oh, that was pretty traumatic for them. My Uncle Tom got to the point where my folks couldn't handle him. He was an adult. And
Need somebody, everybody needs someone at home. Everybody likes to fish real late, but nobody wants to home alone. Everybody needs someone to hold. Everybody wants no sweet love, but nobody wants to be alone. Yeah, nobody wants to go home alone.
I thought you had a microphone there for a second.
Traveling this world of war, but there's no sickness, no toil, no danger in that bright world to which I go. I'm going there to see my father. I'm going there just a going overjoyed, just a going to my home. I want to it's a person. No dark clouds will gather around me. I know my way is rough and steep. The beautiful fields lie just beyond me, where souls redeem their vigils keep. I'm going there to see my mother. She said she'd meet me when I go. Just a going overjoyed, just a going to my home. want to wear a crown of glory when I get home to that bright land. I want to shout salvation's story in concert with that blood-washed hand. I'm going there to meet my Savior, to sing His praises forevermore. Just a going over Jordan. I'm only going to my home. Just a going over Jordan. I'm just a going to my home. Sorry.
Down in the Tennessee hills, and there ain't no smoggy smoke on Rocky Top, ain't no telephone bills. Well, once I had a girl on Rocky Top, half bear, the other half cat. Wild as a mink, sweet as soda pop, and I'm still dreaming about that.
It's a Rocky Top.
You'll always be home, sweet home to me. Good old Rocky Top. Well, Rocky Top, Tennessee. Rocky Top, Tennessee.
I forgot to bring the castanets. Why do I gotta bring those? Now I remember. Trying to figure out how to do this food.
Let's see now. What do we got here? 1, 2, G.
Woo! Whiskey. But it might have been the gin. Could have been the 3 or... We gotta snap this up a little bit.
Yeah. Like a Lutheran dirge.
Yeah, right.
Lutheran dirge. Okay. Is that better?
Yeah. Could have been the whiskey, but it might have been the gin. Could have been that 3 or 4 6-packs that I drank, but won't you look at the shape of him? And it's like a football. I think I'm gonna die. Well, me oh, my. Wasn't that a party? Someone had a grapefruit, wore it like a hat. Somebody else was sitting underneath my kitchen table talking to an old farm cat. They was talking about football. The cat was talking mad. Well, along about then everything went black. Wasn't that a party? I'm sure it's just my memory playing tricks on me. But I think I saw my buddy sitting up in my neighbor's street. He was singing a folk song, and it sounded pretty good. Would have sounded even better if his wife hadn't made such a racket, chopping down that neighbor's wood. I think it was a wood pile, but it might have been his door. All I know is she must have got 3 or 4. Wasn't that a party? Billy Joe and Connie went a little far. They were sitting in the front yard blowing down the siren of somebody's police car. So you see, Your Honor, it was all in fun. That little girl tracked me down on Main Street was just to see if the cops would run. They run us in to see you in an alcoholic haze. And I sure can use those 30 days. Wasn't that a party? And I sure can use those 30 days. Wasn't that a party?
Help me sing it.
They've a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found.
Shut it off here. 1, 2, 3, 1.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see.
Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Twas grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. When we've been 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch
Like me,
I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
That's cool to do the
Songs of loudest praise teach me some melodious sonnet sung by flaming tongues above. Take my heart, I'm fixed upon it. Mount of thy redeeming love. I raise my Ebenezer, here by my help I come, and I know thy good pleasures safely to the bird above. Just love me when a stranger, wandering from the folds of God, they do rescue me from danger, interpose His precious blood. Oh, to grace how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let the good Lord like a friend
seal it for courts above. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal